Hello, Red Earth team. What's happening? Happy Tuesday. Matt Ham here. This is our weekly call with the sales team. I'm coming to you out of Wilmington, North Carolina. You guys are scattered all over. Appreciate you making time to be here. For those who are on the live call, for those who catch the recording, this is just a part of a weekly initiative to talk through ideas, oversee challenges that you guys are facing, and really just help continue to move the ball down the field in a positive direction for everybody individually and for the team. As always, I want to make you guys aware that if y'all want to address some of the issues from a sales perspective or go through some client relationships one-to-one, I'm available for that. My cell, 910-619-4644. Most of you have it. Or if you want to reach out to me, my email is matt@uprint.life. We can connect there. You know, I was... Well, first of all, I mean, where we are kind of in the moment of time right now, a lot of craziness in the world around us. 2020 has been a year. We hear people say that. We say it again and again, but it is true. It has been a very wild year. It's been a very weird year, a very strange year, unlike probably any we've experienced. And so when you go through a year like this, it brings new challenges, some that you probably have faced in different ways and some that you probably never considered. But there are consistencies even within the most difficult year that we still have to focus on. And so right now, you know, we've all been dealing with the concept of a coronavirus situation for 7 months now. There's been the consistent kind of social and cultural unrest. But if you kind of look through the veil, what you see is that there are still people who need to be helped, still people who have a desire to build homes, still people who are wanting to retire, still people who have life dreams and goals and things like that when it comes to building homes and being in these, master plan communities. So none of that really goes away. So your jobs are still very essential and important aside from what's going on around us. Right now we're in mid-November and a lot of the post-election stuff is going on around us. And certainly these events create their own narratives and challenges, and they're in people's minds simply because it's around us every day. And so rather than focus on those situations, because they can become very distracting, they can keep you and me and everybody from moving in a better direction. We can kind of get stuck and down in the mud with them. I want to press in on something that doesn't change, and that is our opportunity to kind of assess the situation around us, our opportunity to begin to decide. And so I have 3 questions that I really want to pose to you guys today. Hypothetically, if you're the type of person who wants to be intentional and write these down, I would highly recommend it. If you just want to kind of remember them off the cuff in the moment, that's fine too. But I think there's a lot of value here for you all long term if you'll really sit with these questions. And the first question is this: do you truly want to get better, or are you comfortable with where you are? Now, that question might seem like a kind of moment, but you have to ask yourself that question. Do you want to get better, or are you comfortable with where you are? You got to answer it. And a lot of people really probably don't spend the time to engage whether or not they want to answer that. They just kind of flippantly go, well, of course I want to get better, but not taking the necessary steps. Or they're honest, they say, I'm pretty comfortable with where I am. Things are pretty good. I'm getting paid, got a paycheck coming in, the sun's out, it's nice, I'm going for a walk, whatever. And they're kind of in that spot. So that's the first question. Do you truly want to get better, or are you comfortable with where you are? Now, there's not a problem with saying both. I can be comfortable with where I am. The problem is you can't be complacent with where you are. If your comfortability leads you to complacency, that's the stuckness, right? And so it's possible to say, I'm not where I want to be. I want to get better, but I am content. I'm comfortable, but I want to move in this direction. So it's not an either or. It can be a both and, but just be aware. You got to answer that question. The second question is this: if nothing changed for you, would you be okay? Like, would you be content if nothing changed? And the reason why I ask that question is a lot of people probably don't consider it, that if nothing changed, would you be okay? And again, the answer to that question is very important because it's going to stimulate you to think about something that's out there, that's something that you desire, something that you want to go toward. And I'll get to why I'm asking these questions, because I think they're the driving force of choosing to move beyond a moment of distraction. The last question is this: if you're in the same place 1 year from now, are you going to be okay with that? If you're in the same place 1 year from now, are you okay with that? I think a lot of folks don't challenge themselves to really answer these questions and really pause enough to think. And here's why. At some point in time, now we can go over all the sales tactics, all the sales processes, get better at closing, get better at prospecting, and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to a decision. You have to make a decision that you want to get better. You have to make a decision that you want to pursue this. You have to make a decision, not just go through the motions, but you have to have a heart level commitment to it. Now, I'm not questioning anybody that's on the live call whether or not that this is where you are. But what you see a lot of times is when you get distractions around you and things maybe get a little bit tumultuous, you start to waffle and you start to go, really, what's the point anyway? I mean, I'm kind of fine where I am, or, maybe I need to go do something else, or, we get in these mind spaces where our loss of focus, our loss of commitment, our loss of direction is challenged, and we end up just kind of floating through our days. And listen, I'm saying this from experience, y'all. I would say over the last month, I have had a massive personal challenge in my own life about feeling like I'm just kind of floating through the moment. And I had to really look in the mirror and say, who are you? Is this what you truly want? Is this where you want to go? Make the decision. And the first kind of like overarching thought today when it comes to sales, and it comes to each of you, and it comes to the communities that you're in, and it comes to your lives and your careers and all these types of things, these are the questions that you have to answer. Do you really want to get better? Are you comfortable with where you are? Again, it's okay to answer both. If nothing changed, would you be okay? And if you're in the same place 1 year from now, is that okay with you? And I think the point is right now with the election situation, what I'm feeling, this is me personally speaking, and this is not political, but there is a massive spirit of indecision in the world around us. There's a great spirit of indecision, meaning it's kind of like there's this ton of gray area, right? And you've got people that are just on both sides of all these different equations, and there's just this waffling kind of indecisive thing that's going on around us. At least that's what I feel, and that's what I see. You guys might not feel that at all. But what I'm getting to the point of is at some point in time, we have to make the decision, and we have to leave that in our past. We can't waffle on a decision, or we can't go back to a decision and wonder if we should have made the decision. We asked 10 people, what do you think about this decision? Should I have made it? Should I have made something different? This concept of waffling and going back and forth, it leads people to stagnation, and it's very distracting. And so you can have all the sales tactics and skills in the world, but at some point in time, you have to decide. Is this what I want to do? Is this the direction I'm going? Is this what I'm about? Am I okay with where I am, or am I moving in a direction I want to get better? Once you decide, then I think the next process is discovery. Now, this is an area where a lot of folks, I think, don't slow down long enough to really get into the nitty-gritty. There are so many different things that we could focus on from the process of sales. How do you qualify a home site, right? How do you prospect? How do you brand yourself? How do you close a prospect? Like, all of those things matter. And there are so many resources out there, and we can address that as you guys desire. But the underlying thing is that you as an individual salesperson have to do the process of discovery to find out, what am I really good at? and where are my weaknesses? What am I really good at, and where are my weaknesses? Once you've made a decision that you're in the game and that you've got the ball and you're moving downfield, then you have to do the process of discovery about where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. This is where I think a lot of sales training falls short because it overemphasizes your weaknesses. And it tells you to get better at your weaknesses, get better at your weaknesses, get better at your weaknesses. So you spend all of your time focusing on the things you're not good at. And I tend to take a different approach to that. And I say, what are you awesome at? What are you incredible? What makes you incredible? Maybe you're awesome on the phone. Maybe you are awesome in person. Maybe you're awesome with your knowledge, your technical skill. And you have to highlight what makes you really good, and you have to focus intently on what makes you you. And you have to celebrate your strengths. I mean, like hyper focus on your strengths. Just before we went live on the call, I was talking with Lauren, and she says she's found that some of her greatest assets are current folks in the community who she's already worked with. And that is so, so true. Your greatest strength is often those who have done business with you before. I remember when I was in the insurance business, I always sold somebody and moved on to the next. And we get in this mindset of okay, next, and going, no, I've got to cultivate what's already worked really well. And that's these relationships over here. And so a strength would be your greatest resource is folks that you've done business with. These are relationships that matter immensely. And so how are you cultivating those relationships? Do you have a process in play that is celebrating your current customers and celebrating those relationships, fostering those relationships, developing those relationships? This is all part of the major process, but we have to focus on the strengths. And I think that there's a great danger in just focusing on weaknesses. And so I take it the other way around and say, what are you really good at? And if you say, I'm really good on the phone, as an example, then I would ask you, how many hours a day, how many hours a week are you spending on the phone? And you're like, oh gosh, probably not a lot, because I'm doing this with this builder, or I've got to run this over here, or I'm sitting in the model home, or I've, whatever. And so what people do after they decide, then they have to establish and discover what they're good at. And most people don't spend the majority of their time doing what they're really good at. They spend time doing things, and I'm not saying, I know we all have things to do that are necessary things to do. This goes back to last week's call. I said sometimes you got to clean the toilets in the bathroom. And if you're unwilling to clean the toilets in the bathroom and you've got a nasty bathroom, you can't expect to have an entire organization that is good and thriving. So there are times where you have to do things you're not good at or have to do things you don't want to do. But when you look at the majority of your time, the majority of your week, are you spending it doing the things that make you awesome? If your best asset is how good you are in front of people, are you in front of people? Right? And so you have to discover what you're really good at. Now, on the flip side of that, it's important to understand where your weaknesses are. I call weaknesses blind spots, right? These are areas that are just out, I can't see my hand right now, okay? You can see it. Now, if I move it right here, oh, there it is. I can see it out of my periphery. But right here, I can't see it. So there's a blind spot. And so blind spots are weaknesses. They're areas where you can't quite see. And what it requires you to do to see it is to turn your head. Oh, there it is. And what often helps you turn your head is people around you. That's why it's great to have coaches. That's why it's great to have accountability. That's why it's great to have open relationships with your peers, because they can help you see your blind spots. They can help you target your weaknesses. So you have to spend an intentional amount of time each week focusing on your weaknesses and getting them better. Go back to the analogy. So most folks would say, I'm great in person. I'm not really good on the phone. Perfect. You need to be spending the majority of your time in front of people. But it's a catch-22 because if you're not capable or good on the phone, chances are it might diminish and keep you from being able to be in front of people. So I've got to work on my phone skills. I've got to work on my phone presentation. So how do I do that? You have to spend intentional time focusing on the things that you're not good at, your blind spots. And so as you're mapping out kind of your week, you have to come in with your heart first. You got to decide. Then you got to say, what am I really good at? I'm spending most of my time there. What am I struggling with? I've got to spend some time getting better at those things. And guys, listen, this is where most salespeople just kind of make their way through, and they kind of go, yeah, but I'm kind of comfortable. If things get bad, I can go hustle and make a sale, and I can get, and that's fine. That's fine. You can do that for the rest of your life in this industry, and that is what it is. But at some point in time, you have to make a decision, and you got to move in that direction. And that's what I would challenge you guys to do, is to move in a direction of excellence. Move in a direction that you are better, you are thriving, you are accomplishing the things that you set out to accomplish. And this goes back into the stuff we've been talking about for the last 6 months about having a dream and having a vision and seeing where you're going. Now we're kind of getting down into the tangible things. Once you have all that, once you have decided, then you have to accelerate the things you're excellent at, accelerate the things that your strengths, accelerate your strengths, and then you have to spend some time focusing on your weaknesses. But you don't constantly focus on your weakness, because that is deflating. And that's what a lot of people do when they try to kind of get better, is they just focus on their weakness, and they forget what they do well. You have to have a simultaneous thing of, I'm focusing what I'm doing well, and occasionally I'll focus on my weakness. I'm focusing on what I'm doing well, and I'll occasionally focus on my weakness. So that is kind of the way I see this. And the final thing I would say is, once you've made a decision, once the indecision is passed and you're not wondering if you should have made it or asking this person what they think or waffling back and forth, right? Then you say, okay, now I'm going to discover what makes me great. I'm going to focus on it and spend a little bit of time focusing on my weakness. At that point in time, I would say it's decide, discover, and finally develop. Decide, discover, develop. The third step here is to develop. You have to be willing to put in the work. You have to be willing to put in the work. And that work includes the consistency of every day, the stuff we've always talked about. You've got to do the little things well. You have to have a consistency of excellence in how you present yourself. You have to get busy with the process of accelerating your strengths, and you have to spend some time on your weaknesses. You actually have to carry it out. You actually have to carry it out. And so what does that look like? For me, it's making schedules, right? I've told you this before. A very tangible way that works for me is I've put everything on schedules. I'm trying to find one in my notepad here, okay? This is, for those watching, this is my schedule. For those on the screen here, this is my schedule of the week. I've got built-in time for all of the different aspects that are required of me. And there's no gap there. I'm spending consistent time at the things I'm good at, but I'm also spending some time to work on my weaknesses and making sure that everything falls into its proper place, and I'm not getting overwhelmed in the moment by just being reactionary. I work with a lot of salespeople and a variety of different mechanisms. The people that are excellent at sales and the people that are excellent in their lives and in their businesses, there is structure. There has to be structure, and that structure has to be a byproduct of how they function. So there's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but there has to be some level of structure. And if we don't have structure and we're just kind of reacting, it's just kind of like a floating thing, and you never float towards excellence. And so I would challenge you all to begin to own your business. Own your business as if it were yours. You have to make that decision that is who you are. You have to spend time in discovery of the weaknesses and strengths, focusing on what you're really good at, and spending a little bit of time focusing on what needs improvement. And then you've got to actually go and carry it out. You've got to spend the time carrying it out. So that is kind of the high level, in my perspective, moment in time that we're in a culture of indecision where people waffle and tend to float around. You guys have an opportunity now to make a decision to do the discovery and then to begin to carry it out and develop all that and get a head start on it. Because 2021 is going to come and it's going to hit the ground running. And, those who aren't ready will be in the same space 1 year from now, which goes back to, why I asked the question. So anyway, a few thoughts for your Tuesday. As always, if anybody has any questions, we can address them here on the live call, or if you're watching this video replay, you can reach out to me, Matt@uprint.life. Other than that, you guys have an awesome week. Keep on going.